all these individuals. Again, it's been an historic event, and it's a commitment that we're all together. We're working together to make sure we get this done correctly and how we've always been doing it. Again, the ICE mission statement continues to be to protect the homeland against those individuals who undermine the integrity of our immigration laws. This operation encapsulates that, and I'm very proud to be here. And I will now introduce our ICE Deputy Director, Madison Sheehan.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Madison Sheehan, the ICE Deputy Director. It's really an honor to be able to be here today with all of you to highlight the success of this historic operation, Operation Tidal Wave, which was created in partnership with the state of Florida and ICE. Since January 20th, President Trump has made a commitment to the American people to prioritize public safety as well as national security. And everything we do at ICE is to prioritize those things. And this operation really is a historic marker of success that was made possible because of the partnership with the state of Florida, allowing us to activate our 287G officers and activating over 250 local and state law enforcement as well as National Guard to assist our federal partners. And I want to thank Governor DeSantis for his commitment to be able to put this operation on for the last week. And together we are able to conduct over 1,100 arrests and remove several violent gang members from the communities here in Florida. Operation Tidal Wave is truly a first of its kind operation, utilizing 287G resources, integrating with the state and local law enforcement to assist in the day-to-day ICE mission. While this may be the first 287G operation of its kind, thanks to the governor, it's not going to be the last. President Trump, Secretary Noem, and ICE are committed to these large-scale operations to be able to keep our communities safe, because we will not stop until our American families and everyday Americans are safe in their own communities, because we have zero tolerance for criminal, illegal aliens. I want to also highlight some of the historic arrests that were made by our 287G partners, including a Brazilian national that has a history of aggravated assault. We have a Mexican national taken into custody whose history includes kidnapping. And we also have Colombian nationals who were convicted of murder that we were able to take off of the street thanks to the men and women of ICE, our federal partners, as well as our state and local officers who dedicate themselves every single day to keeping the American people and the people of Florida safe. I'd also like to thank our partners here at Operation Tidal Wave, including the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the Florida Department of Emergency Management, the Florida Highway Patrol, the Florida National Guard, the Florida Sheriff's Association, as well as the Fish and Wildlife Commission and their Department of Corrections, who all came to the table when we were met the moment that was asked of them, directed by Governor DeSantis, working directly with ICE here in the state of Florida to create this historic partnership that will go down as the most single arrest done by a state in a single week that ICE has ever had, leading up to that 1,100 arrests that we've been able to highlight over this last week. Truly a historic marker of a model that can be used not only here in the state of Florida for many operations to come, and I think the governor would agree that this will not be the last one here in the state of Florida, but also a model that we're able to take to other states to make it a priority that the president has kept to the American people to make sure our communities are safe and continue to be safe. I'd also like to thank our federal partners, including CBP, the U.S. Coast Guard, ATF, DEA, the FBI, and the U.S. Marshals. This is truly an all-government approach set the tone by President Trump and Secretary Noem, and ICE is able to take the lead with these partners to be able to make this historic event and historic operation, Operation Tidal Wave, happen. Again, I'd like to thank Governor DeSantis for his continued support and commitment to the people of ICE and the people of America to be able to get this done. I'd also like to thank President Trump and Secretary Noem for their continued leadership and commitment to the American people. Thank you.
All right, and moving on, our great governor of Florida, Mr. Ron DeSantis.
Well, thank you. 4 years ago, we had seen something that we had never seen in American history. We had a president, Joe Biden, that opened the border and basically declared that people could come illegally. Interior enforcement was rendered basically null and void, and this was impacting not just the southern border region of Texas or Arizona, but communities all across the country, including in the state of Florida. And so 4 years ago, we were sending people to the southern border to help supplement state efforts to try to mitigate the damage. And our Operation Lone Star saw more than 1,000 national, state guardsmen, state law enforcement officers go to Texas to assist the state of Texas in stopping this border invasion. We also, being a maritime state, we are vulnerable to having illegal boats coming and bringing illegal aliens onto our shores. This was particularly pressing when you had issues in Haiti bubble up even more, and there was a lot of issues that people thought was going to lead to a mass migration into the state of Florida. We launched Operation Vigilant Sentry. We deployed more than 250 officers and soldiers from Florida Division of Emergency Management, State Guard, and other state law enforcement agencies to patrol Florida's southern coast. That was supplementing what the Coast Guard is already doing, but because of our efforts, we were able to bring about more than 17,000 repatriations and almost 500 vessels removed since that time at the end of 2022. And we worked together with the Coast Guard on that, but that has been a huge, huge positive for us. Of course, our state efforts didn't end there. We were involved in illegal alien transport, similar to what Texas was doing, so that sanctuary jurisdictions were having to deal with the issues that the open border was bringing to other communities. And we were really on the front lines of that all 4 years of the Biden administration. Enter the 2024 election and the election of President Trump again. Border security and immigration enforcement was perhaps the signature issue of the president's first campaign in 2016 and this one where he got reelected. So we saw an opportunity to have a much different relationship with the federal government as it relates to immigration enforcement. So immediately I instructed our state agencies to engage in what are called 287G agreements with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which basically leads to our state agencies being able to exercise authority in the immigration sphere to supplement and cooperate with the federal government. And we know that ICE had a rough run under Biden for 4 years. A lot of the things, this 287G program was effectively dormant. Certainly the task force model was dormant. So we did that. So you had Highway Patrol, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Fish and Wildlife, all those agencies signing agreements. And I think you now have, I read a blurb that you have like 500 agencies, law enforcement agencies across the country that now have these agreements with ICE, and about half of those are in Florida, state and local, which we're really, really proud of. We're also, though, not just stopping with law enforcement. We've also done 287G agreements with regulatory agencies in Florida. Our Department of Business and Professional Regulation, Division of Alcoholic Beverage and Tobacco, the Florida Gaming Control Commission, and the Florida Lottery all operate in what we would consider target-rich environments. During their routine inspection and investigative duties, special agents are oftentimes in contact with people who may be in our country illegally. So we think deputizing those officers in regulatory spaces is going to be another source to lead to these immigration enforcement efforts. Now, when President Trump was preparing to take office, I called a special session of the Florida legislature because I knew that we needed policy in Florida that would require all state and local agencies, law enforcement, to participate in these efforts. We're not a sanctuary state. We ban sanctuary cities, but that just means you can sit on your hands. Yeah, you can't sabotage the efforts, but you were under no obligation to be on the team. We had to battle some of the folks in the House of Representatives in Florida, but we were able to get that done. And so now all 67 counties have 287G agreements with their sheriff's departments, and we're adding more and more police departments each and every day. So Florida's really led the effort there. Some of these agencies would have wanted to be a part of the fight. Others would have rather not have been part of the fight, but because of our legislation, they are all, in fact, a part of the fight. and this is something that's been really, really good. And there's been a lot of great enforcement efforts leading up to Operation Tidal Wave, but this has been the first of its kind throughout the United States. This is the largest immigration enforcement operation that we've seen in quite some time throughout the entire country. Florida state agencies assisted federal authorities to arrest over 1,100 illegal aliens across the state. That is a really significant impact, and we're demonstrating why we're going to continue to lead on this issue. And you see some of the people that were arrested there. These are people that should have never been in our country. Some of these people had been previously deported. Some of these people had been alerted in the Biden administration, but this is something they didn't want to have to do with it. So our folks have worked hand in hand with DHS to really, really make a difference for the people of Florida and for the people of the United States of America. Because I think when you're dealing with people, millions and millions of people here illegally, you see some of these folks who have huge, huge problems in their background, with their conduct, and really put our communities at risk. It's important that the law is enforced. It's important that those people are taken care of. But what it also does is sends the message going forward, the United States of America is serious about enforcing its immigration laws. So whereas under the previous president, you could pay coyotes and come to the border knowing that you'd be home free once you got there, there's a new sheriff in town. That is not going to be permitted. And I think that's one of the reasons why you've had the largest drop in border crossings in American history during President Trump's first 100 days. And so this has been night and day in terms of our state efforts, working with the Trump administration. I think it's going very, very well. That was not necessarily the case under the previous administration. What I'd also say is this: we have the best emergency response team in the country. Our state agencies are very versatile. We have both a National Guard and a State Guard who are used to responding to different types of contingencies. We're ready, willing, and able to take it to the next level. We have submitted plans to DHS to say, if this is approved, we will go off to the races, and we will be able to do really from soup to nuts, from apprehension to detention, even putting some of our people in the National Guard in line to serve as immigration judges to process this. We can do it. And I'd also say, you hear a lot about due process. We have tens of thousands of illegal aliens in Florida at a minimum that have already been issued final orders of removal, and there's hundreds of thousands of them throughout the United States of America. So they've had a lot of process. They've been ordered to be removed. They have not complied with those removal orders, and that's a very, very high priority for our state efforts to continue to identify those individuals and make sure that they're returned to their country of origin. So I want to thank the federal agencies that have really led the way. It's been a welcome change here in the state of Florida, and also thank all of our state and local partners who worked really, really hard for this operation, but have been doing this now for many months, and we're proud to have been the first state out of the gate, but we view this as just the beginning. We think that the best is still yet to come, so thanks for everyone that's been involved.
Thank you, Governor DeSantis. Thank you for his support and his vision. I'd now like to introduce Larry Keefe, who is the Executive Director for the State Board of Immigration Enforcement.
Thank you, Garrett. Thank you. Good morning. The first thing I want to do is follow Governor DeSantis with thanks to our federal partners. Thanks to our federal partners for placing their trust in us. Thanks to our federal partners for reposing their confidence in us to be one of what is the first of its kind partnership in the mass deportation immigration enforcement setting. We are very grateful for that. 100 days ago, the President of the United States, upon his inauguration, declared a national emergency. He ordered, and when I say you all, I mean my federal partners here in this room, he ordered you all to secure our borders, and he ordered you all to deport over 15 million illegal aliens who had invaded our country and infiltrated our communities. And I say this vicariously proudly for you all. I used to be with the Department of Justice, so I have some federal DNA that still runs through me. I am so proud that you all, our federal partners, in about 7 weeks, effectively, functionally secured our national borders and restored our national sovereignty. Yesterday, I saw President Trump presiding over a cabinet meeting where Secretary Noem took it out several decimal points that as of yesterday at least, the border is 99.99, and maybe she went on for some more, but effectively secured. So job well done, and it's an honor to be your partner. But, and by the way, I should mention, I spent some time on the Texas border, and over 60% of the folks, the illegal aliens that invaded this country were headed to Florida. So a special thank you from Florida to President Trump and Secretary Noem for that great accomplishment of securing our border. But the transition and focus now is on what I understand to be the largest deportation campaign in American history. Millions and millions of people embedded, illegal aliens embedded in the heart of our country, and that is a huge task and a huge undertaking for any organization. What a lot of people don't know, given the size and the power and the authority of the federal government, that when it comes to law enforcement, federal law enforcement is really only about 15% of all the law enforcement in this country. 85% of the everyday regular law enforcement in this country is at the state and local level. In order for the federal government to carry out its mass deportation mission, it absolutely has to have not just the kind of passive, yeah, we're with you, support and assistance, but direct engagement, leaning forward, ready to assist, hand in hand. Our governor in Florida recognized that within a week, I think, Governor, of President Trump's inauguration, and called the special session of the Florida legislature, where everybody in Florida combined, the legislature, the governor, all the members of the cabinet, said, we are lockstep with you, Mr. President. We are there 100%, every bit of the way, leaning forward, 287G, the whole works. So to leave my thanks for my federal partners at the moment right now, thank you for reposing your trust and confidence in us. And Florida looks forward to being the bellwether, the blueprint, the prototype of how state and locals work with their federal partners to make things happen and get things done in all settings, but in this instance, the mass deportation setting. Let me turn now to something I don't do often enough, and that is to thank my Florida state and local colleagues, some of whom are standing behind me, but not all of them are. And some say that familiarity breeds forgetfulness in who matters to you and who to be grateful for. So I want to express my gratitude to them and all they've done to make this happen and will continue to do to make this happen. About 3 months ago, when I began my efforts toward this project, I went to Washington, D.C., and I spoke with one of the senior leaders at DHS named David Venturella, and I told him unabashedly that Florida is going to do absolutely whatever it must do to be the best state partner for President Trump and Secretary Noem in this endeavor. Shortly after that, the state and all of our state agencies came to Miami, where there's the greatest concentration of the DHS folks that are really calling the shots of what happens in Florida. And we met with them, and we didn't just meet with them and leave and go back to Tallahassee and other places. We embedded with them at the Joint Intelligence Operations Center and formed real relationships. And we have continued through representatives of state law enforcement agencies to be there in that federal space, breathing the same air, arm in arm, sitting next to each other, doing all the things you need to do to go about finding, sorting, detaining, and deporting illegal aliens, especially those that are residing in the state of Florida. These are real, authentic relationships, federal, state, and local working together in one physical place. Imagine it in the 21st century, post-COVID. They are very well underway in their efforts in terms of understanding Florida's capabilities and capacities, all the tools that the state of Florida has to bring to the mission. And I would say that, as you all can tell from Governor DeSantis and his approach, not just are we there passively offering tools, we want to get in and do the work. And so Florida is also offering solutions. You heard the governor mention some of them with regard to detention and transportation, all involved in this process. There are two individuals that have a very key role in scaling this up, where this blueprint can be taken to other states from Florida. And that we have with us behind me today, Director Kevin Guthrie of the Division of Emergency Management and General John Haas of the Florida National Guard, in terms of the mass movements of people. After they have been found, after they have been detained, there's lots of movements, there's lots of needs for housing, lots of logistics complexities that would make Amazon delivery or Federal Express blush. They are amazing in their skills, and they're offering those. So I want to say a quick thank you to my my state partners once again, my state colleagues, for being chosen, for being trusted, and for making Florida proud. As I bring it in for landing here, my perspectives on Operation Tidal Wave is I'm so enthusiastic, so excited, I'm not surprised. I knew it would be a success. Our federal partners are amazing. The state leaned in on it, and those numbers are wonderful, and they're great. But quite frankly, my perspective is that Operation Tidal Wave, at least that 1 week of it that's occurred already, our first op, so to speak, was a warm-up, was a test run, was just to kind of see how things played out after all those months of working and planning. I see it as just that. It is not going to be just a succession of surges and operations and press conferences. This is going to be a sustained, persistent effort. And these relationships that I've gone on and on about today prove themselves in the heat of battle, and I'm so glad for that. But it's just a warm-up. The greatest obstacle that I perceive in this whole space right now is lawfare. It is the weaponization of the judiciary, and it is things other than the mission itself, things unrelated to finding, sorting, detaining, and deporting. That is the greatest obstacle to slow down momentum for those who want to obstruct this process, and it is essential that there be strong leadership. It takes a unique type of leader in this type of environment, a leader that is bold, a leader that is decisive, a leader that is resolute, and a leader that is, and leaders plural, who are undaunted in the face of this weaponized judiciary and lawfare. And we absolutely have that. The stars have aligned. It's a perfect storm of goodness with President Trump, Secretary Noem, and Governor DeSantis. They are the right leaders at the right place at the right time. Lastly, my perspectives on the partnership going forward. Once again, what has happened here this past week that we're here talking about today is a warm-up. What matters now is how we put together our plan or finalize our plan for execution on what is going to be constant, persistent pressure and effort in this process. And a key to that is going to be measuring success. A lot of people fear accountability. They don't like it. They don't like to measure things. But this is quintessentially a numbers mission. If you're engaged in mass deportation and you're focused on success in mass deportation in Florida, then you got to know how many apprehensions are you having? How many people have you detained? How many people have you deported? So it is key for the citizens of the state and the citizens of the country to hold their leaders accountable, to find out what is your sheriff doing? What is your police chief doing? What are those law enforcement agencies or local officials doing that they can do to assist in this emergency mission? That's all I have. Thank you very much, and once again, thanks to our federal host and partners.
Thank you, Mr. Keefe. And now I'd like to introduce the Chief Patrol Agent for the Miami sector, Chief Jeff Denisi.
Good morning. I want to begin by thanking Governor DeSantis and the Florida state law enforcement partners and military partners and the Florida sheriffs for leading the charge across the nation in immigration enforcement. It's because of your unwavering partnership, the first iteration of Operation Tidal Wave was a resounding success. In the simplest of terms, border security is national security. The maritime border environment surrounding the state of Florida is being exploited every day by foreign terrorist organizations, such as Tren de Agua and MS-13. These criminal organizations are attempting to smuggle people and narcotics, which pose a significant danger to our nation. To combat this threat, the law enforcement agencies of the Department of Homeland Security within the state of Florida employ a defense-in-depth posture. The first layer of enforcement is the seamless coordination between the United States Coast Guard and CBP Air and Marine operations. Their tireless efforts in the maritime detection and interdiction set the foundation for our success. Our DHS maritime partners are strengthened by the expertise and commitment of the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission and the Florida sheriffs in the coastal communities. The vital intelligence and operational space generated by the Maritime Interdiction Partners allows the U.S. Border Patrol and the CBP Office of Field Operations to focus their efforts on the ingress and egress smuggling routes. These routes are utilized by those attempting to circumvent the Homeland Security laws. It is in this environment that the Florida Highway Patrol, National Guard, and Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission and our local sheriffs are invaluable partners. They work shoulder to shoulder with our agents and officers to ensure the integrity of our shores, our marinas, our ports, and our roadways. This unified front sends a very clear message. Florida's coast will not be a haven for foreign terrorist organizations. The final layer of DHS enforcement belongs to our ICE partners, with ERO removal operations and Homeland Security investigations. They're responsible for disrupting and dismantling foreign terrorist organizations by targeting criminal individuals. During this operation, ICE, in collaboration with FDLE, FBI, DEA, ATF, and the CBP Special Response Team, focused their efforts on the apprehension of illegal aliens with final orders. It gives me great pride and pleasure to highlight some of the criminal aliens on the display boards that you see here that our agents and officers work together to remove from our Florida communities. While on patrol in Jupiter, Florida, Border Patrol agents and Highway Patrol troopers arrested Alejandro Flores. He's an illegal alien from Mexico. Flores is an aggravated felon with criminal convictions for alien smuggling. Flores is being prosecuted for re-entry after deportation and will swiftly be deported after serving his sentence. In another event during this operation, Border Patrol agents and Polk County Sheriff's deputies collaborated to arrest Geller Orobio, an illegal alien from Colombia, after his release from a local detention facility. Orobio served a sentence for residential breaking and entering and has prior charges for re-entry after deportation and is a confirmed South American theft group member. Orobio is being prosecuted for re-entry after deportation and will be deported. To those that violate our immigration laws and undermine our national security, the message is clear. We will locate you, prosecute you, and deport you. The success of Operation Tidal Wave sends an unwavering message. Our collaborative efforts are making Florida an inhospitable environment for criminals to operate. We are committed to ensuring our Florida communities are safe and our nation is secure. On behalf of Customs and Border Protection, I extend my deepest appreciation to Governor DeSantis and our state and local law enforcement partners. Your commitment to the safety and security in Florida is steadfast, and we are honored to stand alongside you in this vital mission. Together we are stronger, and we will continue to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Denisi. That will conclude the presentation portion. We will open it up for a few questions that are germane to the Operation Tidal Wave. Ma'am.
Sure. Okay, we can definitely get you updates. I don't think that's a problem. The first name is Geller Orobio, O-R-O-B-I-O, and he's the Colombian individual you see over here. Geller. That's G-E-I-L-E-R.
Sir.
Two questions for the governor. So, as predicted, with Operation Tidal Wave and similar law enforcement efforts here in the state, immigration attorneys, immigration advocates are saying that this operations like this are basically racial profiling. It's
Of course. I mean, I think we've seen it. You know, on the one hand, Biden opened the border. You'd have states like Texas do legislation to say, okay, we'll enforce federal law. And the courts would say, oh no, it's the province of the federal government. And so they have a right and supremacy to not take care that the laws are faithfully. It'd be one thing if the state was going against what the law is, then you could say supremacy. So it basically neutered the states. Now we're in a situation where the federal government is enforcing the law, and the courts are saying, well, no, you really can't do that. People need to have, you know, some O.J. Simpson type trial before they can be deported. It's nuts. And it's a heads they win, tails we lose for the country, to where people come in unimpeded and it's virtually impossible for them to go. I think the president has statutory authority to do this. I also think he's got Article 2 constitutional authority to do this. But I think what we've seen is they will find judges who just want to throw sand in the gears. And that's been true across their efforts, not even limited to the immigration space. So I anticipate that that will likely continue. Ultimately, though, you know, the U.S. Supreme Court can end this charade. They've had opportunities to do it, and they haven't been willing to do it. They've created some of the mess in the immigration space with the jurisprudence. They should reverse U.S. versus Arizona. That was not the right decision. That was a split decision from the court. And so they have an opportunity to get this basically on better footing, because right now you have the policies are really being hijacked by these district judges. And they shouldn't be able to do a nationwide injunction. If you have an illegal alien that they sue for, and the judge wants to find something, even though I probably wouldn't agree with that, that should apply to that case. It shouldn't stop immigration enforcement efforts writ large. So we're going to continue to deal with those issues, but I do think these are going to need resolution by the U.S. Supreme Court, and I don't think you're going to see it end until that happens.
Anything about racial profiling, Governor?
There's no racial profiling. If you're here illegally, then you're in violation of the law. And there's not saying that, you know, only people of one shade, or that. If you're illegal, you're illegal. And we're going to hold you accountable.
Ma'am.
Hi, so I was wondering how you guys are handling the balance between pursuing foreign, what you consider foreign criminals and national criminals, because foreigners are not the only criminals. Law enforcement agents at the state and local levels also need to pursue national U.S. citizens that are committing crimes. So how are we balancing that to make sure we're not distracting them from their job?
I can take that. Sure. Well, our state and local, they are doing their jobs as they always do. Their role in this is to supplement the efforts that the feds are doing. The reality is they come into contact with illegal aliens more than the feds do, just in a matter of course. And so to have this cooperation, I mean, our highway patrol, you have people driving on the highways here illegally, we don't issue driver's license, we don't recognize driver's license, we don't recognize any ID for people here illegally in Florida, but nevertheless they're driving. Well, our highway patrol can then work with ICE and get this process moving. So it works well in harmony, and I think ultimately, if you're enforcing immigration laws consistently, I think that leads to less crime overall, and I think it ends up helping their missions.
Sir.
So I think that remains to be seen how they're exactly going to do it. I think that these folks are involved in areas where they're likely going to be able to add value to what ICE and DHS are doing. So I think just stay tuned and see how that unfolds.
Ma'am.
Look, we work with the White House every day. We update them on the numbers every single day, and we're working closely with the president, his team directly at the White House, as well as Maine DHS team with Secretary Noem every single day. We saw the numbers we put out for the first 100 days, roughly 65,000 arrests in the first 100 days, which is truly a historic number. And I think, and the governor has mentioned this too, I think the biggest difference is the way we're counting every arrest. These are legitimate arrests. These are criminal aliens. We have zero tolerance for criminal aliens to be in this country. And we're making sure that we're counting every arrest as accurate as possible. And we're not doing catch and release that you saw from the Biden administration, which shows a lot of skewed numbers of what you saw out of the previous administration. The president has zero tolerance for us to do anything wrong with the numbers. We are very clear in the stance of what we're counting as arrests, and we stand by our numbers.
Why isn't it being updated monthly, though, as it typically was before?
Look, we update the numbers as often as possible. The data comes into us every day. We're moving as quickly as possible to make sure President Trump, Secretary Noem have made it a priority to be more transparent than the previous administrations, and we are working to do that every day.
You mentioned 63% were criminal aliens. What happened to the rest? I mean, did they also have deportation orders?
Yes, everybody that is in this country illegally is a criminal, and so we are processing them through the immigration courts, the due process, to make sure that we get them through the courts, through the DOJ process, and then from there they will be deported, turning the outcome of those cases.
Director, you made mention of certainly the focus is on criminal immigrants, but we've certainly seen some stories where mothers who have either overstayed visas or have shown up for a regular appointment and they have a deportation order and with no criminal history, so that person along with their child is deported. And we've seen a bunch of instances made reference as collateral. Can you speak to that, ma'am? Mothers with no criminal history with infant child or babies are being deported, and is that how the process is supposed to work?
Look, I stand by what we've said since day one, since January 20th. If you are in this country illegally, you are a criminal. We have zero tolerance for criminal aliens in this country. As far as a conversation about children, I think the real conversation we should be having is about the 500,000 children that the Biden administration allowed to come unaccompanied across the border that President Trump has made a priority to get them back home with their families.
Question for the governor, just about the intersection of state law. We saw it in the federal court in Miami on Friday. A judge had reiterated that there was a stay, said that there was 15 arrests that are currently being made. One was with a U.S. citizen up in Tallahassee on a violation of a federal order. We hear you kind of take a jab at the due process and the judicial, but
It's not taking a jab. It's just, you can't have effective immigration enforcement if you have elaborate procedures that you have to go through. It is not punishment to be removed from this country. If you're going to be punished, then you get the full panoply of due process. But these are not punishments that are being rendered. It is just the consequence of being here illegally. Now, in terms of this judge, we are not at all surprised. We knew that they would go in and do that. The legislature structured that state law in a way that was different from Texas and some of the others that have run into problems. So we actually feel confident that we'll ultimately be vindicated on that. It should be a crime to enter the state of Florida illegally. We have police power to be able to do that. That does not undercut or interfere with federal efforts. In fact, if anything, that buttresses federal efforts.
How are you guys trying to detain these people with the already existing capacity challenges in ICE detention centers?
So on detention, if we get the sign off from DHS, we can expand detention space very quickly in Florida. I mean, just think about it. I mean, you guys who are Florida-based, when we have hurricanes, we end up setting up locations for tens of thousands of linemen, right? Do that very, very quickly. So we have the capacity to set it up quickly, but we're not going to do that without the approval of the Department of Homeland Security. And I know they're working on exactly what they want to do after Tidal Wave. This is what they had focused on. So Kevin Guthrie, Division of Emergency Management, they can absolutely do that. And that could be potentially a short-term support for the lack of space that the feds may have. So we stand ready, willing, and able to help in that space. We stand ready, willing, and able to help in the immigration judge space. Because remember, I think I mean, not everyone may know because the way it's presented. These are not Article III judges. They are executive branch employees, basically. We can absolutely deputize judge advocates from our National Guard units to serve as immigration judges. We can do others to do that. So we'll help on that piece as well, and we can even help on the transport piece, whether it's transporting. I know that they were talking about Gitmo. I don't know that they've used that, but we can help with that as well. So we can really be a force multiplier in Florida, and a lot of it is just because, well, one, we're committed to the mission. We think it's important. We know that there's tens of thousands of illegal aliens under deportation orders in this state alone. I've heard as much as 80,000 may be in the state of Florida who've already been ordered to be deported, but certainly it's tens of thousands. But we also have great muscle memory on how to handle quick emergency responses. So these things can happen very quickly. Our guys are very nimble. I mean, you know, you've seen hurricane responses, but you've also seen us rescue people from Israel. You've seen us evacuate and rescue people from Haiti. This is just what we do, and we stand ready and willing and able to help. Where are you from? Okay. Great, thanks.
United States of America, so many people are being robbed in this process. This is wonderful, as Dr. McCollum showed, but these American citizens who are being deported, they show their birth certificates, they show their passports, they show their IDs, and a lot of the work being done is a little sloppy.
Well, first of all, I'll let ICE handle that accusation that you're making, that they're deporting American citizens who are showing birth certificates and all that. I don't believe that that's true, but I'll let them respond to that. But you seem to have no sympathy. You seem to have no sympathy for people that have been victimized by illegal aliens. What about people? You have someone driving drunk and kills American citizen. What about people that have been deported previously and let in under Biden, who then commit sexual offenses or commit homicides? And then we have more victims as a result of the federal government's previous inattention and unwillingness to enforce the law. So there are a lot of people that have been harmed by illegal immigration. There have been people that have been harmed by Tren de Aragua gang members who should not be in this country in the first place. So let's just be clear. Who are you fighting for? We're fighting for the citizens of Florida. We want them to be able to live in a society that upholds the rule of law. We want them to be able to live in a state that is safe. And we have to take action on it. I'll let them address your accusation. But the notion that somehow this is America, therefore we're supposed to have an open border, we're not supposed to enforce immigration laws, we're supposed to just sit on our hands when Biden let in 7 or 8 million people illegally into the country? No, that is not responsible. That is not what our citizens elected us to do. So we're in this fight. I think a lot of these narratives that I hear, to me, just instinctively, I think they're fake narratives because I've seen it happen so many times. But I will let folks at ICE respond to your accusation.
Well, the first thing I'll say is that I think the governor's words really stand on their own. The men and women of ICE are working every single day to protect the communities, working with state and local officials to do our very best to protect the communities after the Biden administration opened our borders, allowed people to come into this country that should have never came into this country in the first place, jeopardizing our families and our communities and putting them in harm's way on a daily basis. The men and women of ICE are going into those communities to protect the men and women in these communities to be able to do the mission that we've been set on every single day that the president has given us.
According to court documents, however, of the 349,000 new court cases in 2025 alone, only 1% are new cases based on alleged criminal activity. So a lot of these people don't have criminal past or background. So who's being arrested and where is this information on ICE's website? It's on court documents, but we can't get this information, and ICE, quite frankly, isn't being very transparent.
Look, I'll stand by the fact that if you're in this country illegally, you are a criminal. You will be deported. You will have the opportunity to be able to come back into this country through the correct immigration processes. We're working through those every single day, but our number one goal is to keep the American people safe from the criminals that are walking in this country that should have never been let through in the first place.
Just a follow-up on the guy from Jupiter, because we've been covering that case as well. I think a lot of the criticisms of this racial profiling is the idea that maybe some of these work trucks are getting pulled over. We know this man, he's a passenger
So let me tell you how we operate on the highways. Not only working with Florida Highway Patrol, they're pulling people over every day for traffic violations, but when you see a Border Patrol agent, a marked green and white out there on the highway, this is how they operate. They're cruising along the highway and they're looking for reactions. Reactions from the driver, first of all. The driver looks over and then looks away and won't look at them again. You know, they vary their speed. They move away from that marked unit. We run the license plate. The license plate comes back to an illegal alien. We have the name of the individual registered to the vehicle. We get their DOB from there, and we run it through our immigration systems. So we know when we pull that person over, the registered owner of that vehicle, which gives us reasonable suspicion to stop the vehicle, is an illegal alien. He may not be in that vehicle, but it gives us enough reasonable suspicion, which is what we need to stop a vehicle. There is no racial profiling going on.
Governor, you said some agencies wanted to be part of this fight, some agencies would rather not have been part of this fight. Can you be a little more specific? And was there any pushback or just outright refusal from any agencies or any officials with these agencies or even public officials or state officials to be part of this?
So, no, that's not what I meant. What I was referencing is when we did the special session, one of the things I insisted on was that we impose a duty on all state and local law enforcement to actively assist and participate. I think the language is you have to use your full efforts available to you. Now, obviously, some of our rural sheriffs, they may not have any personnel. Some of our more urban areas probably have a little bit more ability. They also provided funding, though, of course, to help these agencies. We didn't want to do an unfunded mandate. But my point on that is, had we not imposed that duty, you would not have had 67 sheriffs do 287G agreements. You would have had some, maybe even most of them, but you definitely wouldn't have had all of them. You wouldn't have the number of municipal agencies, police departments that have had the 287G had we not imposed the duty. And so that is just, and it's not, I mean, you have some sheriffs that are, you know, conservative law and order, but their view is maybe, hey, the feds can just take care of it. You know, I got enough on my plate. And I get that, but that ultimately doesn't work because this is a problem that is not just limited to ICE agents. I mean, it's a problem that affects communities throughout the state of Florida. It does affect criminal activity. It is a way to bring in drugs, bring in human trafficking, a whole bunch of other stuff. So they're all on board. They've all signed up. As far as I know, every agency is following their duties under state law. And I know that when there have been questions about that, like we had in Orange County, the Florida Attorney General reminded the folks there of the duties under law, and that was taken care of. But it was nothing about this tidal wave. That wasn't what I meant. I meant going into the special session. Had we not sought the legislation, I think that Florida's enforcement would be a little bit more patchwork. I think most of the agencies would probably, our state agencies for sure, because we said the state has to be involved. But on the local level, I think you would have seen some involved and then some. None of them would have been sanctuary because that's against Florida law. But there's a difference between not being a sanctuary and then being on the team and actually helping to amplify the efforts. So the TPS issue is obviously something that the administration will respond to, but I'm not concerned about not seeking support if there's criminal activity. But I will tell you this, because I know Doral very well, and we have a lot of great friends there, and actually got a lot of support there over the years. When we did the Martha's Vineyard, it was mostly Venezuelans who were on that. And people were saying, oh my gosh, Doral, they're going to be so upset because they were Venezuelans. And it turned out these people were thanking me because what they saw was the regime sending people to the border who shouldn't be in the United States. And so I think the way it can be presented by some of the media is different from what you hear from people when you actually get on the ground and cut through the BS. And so, you know, we've got a very vibrant Venezuelan American community. made huge contributions to South Florida and to the state of Florida, and that will continue. But at the same time, I mean, some of these gang members, some of the people that have come in under with Maduro, from Maduro, pushing them out of prisons and stuff, we don't want those folks in Doral. We don't want those folks in South Florida. And I think that there's a pretty clear distinction on those two types of folks.
I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the governor. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. Again, thank you very much.
Look forward to seeing you soon.
We have a 1 o'clock, and then I'm not sure after that. I said we have a 1 p.m.
Can you undo 10 for me, bro, before I fall and knock everyone over? Thank you.
Exasperated